Hey, so I am KB with Nerdophiles. It's so lovely to be with each of you. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I thought it was fantastic. First, I would love to start with you, Nikyatu. Just incorporating African spirituality in this way was unlike anything that I've ever seen. And I thought it was brilliant and enlightening for audiences who may not know anything about Anasi the spider or Mami Wata. So, talk a bit about the creative process and the challenges of really honoring and showcasing African spirituality in this way.
Thank you for that question. It's an ongoing challenge, even as I watch it. I'm a little anxious about when it becomes widely accessible on streaming because, when you're one of the first ones to introduce in a live action form, these really revered and kind of secretive figures that have not really had um, a main stage within literature, within cinema in this nation. You have a lot of pressure to do it right and to do it well and to do it with reverence. Um, but I did a deep dive. I'm a prolific researcher with every project to a fault. Like I never know when to stop researching. I'm constantly going down these rabbit holes. And even though I'm Sierra Leonean, my parents were very much of the generation that was inducted into Christianity. Sierra Leone is a British colony, and there are some Sierra Leoneans who still have reverence for Britain, for their quote unquote masters. And so I had to take initiative and do research on my tribal lineage and like what was happening pre-colonialism, because our history doesn't begin with colonialism. But the problem is that a lot of our cultures have an oral history. So a lot of things were not documented. And if things were documented, they were destroyed. So Mami Wata and Anansi are two figures that ring bells. Even if you have very little knowledge about this type of folklore, I think they're two of the most prevalent and visible figures. And so, and they also are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum of resistance. I love that Anansi is a chaos agent. I love chaos agents. I think that the films that I tend to gravitate to in general have unreliable protagonists. And I think that's interesting because we're all unreliable protagonists, even in our own lives. And so Anansi and Mami Wata were given. The challenge is really always VFX, in live action. It's not an animated film. It's not, a stop motion film. It's a film where we're grounded in a sense of realism. So how do you induct these figures into realism?
Oh, I love it. Well, I can just say that from my perspective, it was brilliant the way that it was seamlessly kind of flowed through. I
Thank
thought
you.
it looked fantastic. So yeah. And for you, Anna and Michelle, your characters are really parallel and kind of mirror images of each other in some ways. Aisha judges Amy for the choices she makes as a mother, but oftentimes those judgments are kind of rooted in her own guilt for leaving her son behind. So talk a little bit about that kind of interesting dichotomy between your two characters. Like, why are they so hard on each
Mm.
other and themselves as women and others? And I'll start with you, Anna.
I mean, you said it in your question. Aisha does hold some judgment and maybe jealousy, maybe. Um, these kind of emotions and feelings are hard to articulate when the stakes are so high and when you're dealing with children and the most important people in the world too. And but yeah, Aisha is dealing with immense guilt. Um, and she sees a mother who's choosing to be away from her child for the sake of her career. And she herself feels like she was more so forced to be in this position. And yeah, she is judgmental of the way that Amy chooses to navigate motherhood. And yeah, I don't know. It's but they are gorgeously paralleled in this really disturbing, um, sensitive, nuanced way. And I loved exploring that. I don't know that we've seen much of that on screen, if ever.
Mm. You're right. And what about for you, Michelle? Why do you find Amy to be so hard on Aisha? Is that maybe that's the jealousy in it, right? She's jealous of the relationship that she has with her daughter, perhaps.
Mm. Yeah, it's indeed layered. It's such a great question, and I think that's one of the things that drew me to the script because uh Nikyatu is exploring womanhood, motherhood, um, and the hierarchy of a patriarchal society, right? And so when you ask the very great question, I think a lot of us ask each other as women, why are we so hard on each other, right? Why do we do that? And I think it's because we're all trying to thrive in a space that wasn't built for us, right? And so the tricky thing is then what do I do with that sort of power? I've assumed this power over Aisha, right? And so how do I yield that power? How do I carry that and pass it on or pay it forward? And so I think there's a lot of resentment that both of them have for each other, and judgments and all of those things. And I think what's so great about the arc of the relationship is that they're both putting their best feet forward from the beginning, and then it starts to crumble, right? As we really see the facades fade away, for these women. And that's really what's building the tension. And we see kind of both characters devolve in their own way.
Ooh, wow. Okay, final question, Cinqua. Listen, last but not least, but obviously, like Aisha is literally being haunted by her guilt and her choices, but Malik comes in and helps enrich her life in ways that she wasn't expecting. So, what do you think that Malik kind of teaches Aisha in the process of her kind of, you know, tackling her grief, tackling her guilt, all of the above?
That's a great question. I feel like the biggest thing that brought synergy to the two characters, and we always talk often about chemistry, the chemistry that is Anna and Senqua, and the chemistry that is Malik and Aisha is not so much trying to teach her, but just trying to listen and understand. So I think they met each other at their levels and they listened to each other. From the beginning, I think he felt that energy that she was going through and really just wanted to be a listener. And then through that process, it gave her the space to open up as she chose. And I think that is what brought that connectivity to the two characters, because he wasn't trying to force her in a direction, but really just meeting her where she was and then building from there.
That's so romantic.
I know.
It is. I'm here
Sell
for
the
all of
dream,
it. I'm here
Nicholas,
for all
sell
of it.
the
You guys sucked
dream.
me in.
I love it. I love it. Well, fabulous film. Truly, truly, really enjoyed it. Great performances. And just thank you so much for taking time to chat with Nerdophiles. Really appreciate it.
Great
Thank
you so
question.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
Great
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.